Today, the budget crawler gets a winch.
The winch we ended up choosing is a Warn M8000. Now, this is not exactly a budget winch for a budget vehicle. It's not a terrible price point, but it's certainly not the cheapest winch we can buy. And I think probably some of the first comments I'm going to get here are, dude, why didn't you buy a Harbor Freight winch? Those things are cheap and they're pretty decent. And to that I say, yes, they are cheap, and I have one on my FJ Cruiser and that hasn't failed yet, so I can't say that they're unreliable. But Warn is one of the top, if not the top, winch manufacturer in the off-road world, and these things are as reliable as they come. Now, more than likely, I'm going to be out on the trail by myself more often than I would like to be, and I want to have the most reliable winch I can possibly have while I'm out there. And that's reason number one why I bought this winch. Reason number two is that it is built in America, and if I can spend a few extra bucks to support an American company, a company that supports American workers, and then I will certainly do that. And this is one of those cases. Now, not all of Warn's winches are made in the USA. I think their VR series is made in China, and it's like 50 or 100 bucks cheaper than the American-made version. So if you're going to buy a Warn winch and you feel the same way I do about buying American-built products, then I would go ahead and give them a call first to verify that the winch you're buying is in fact built in the USA. Now, enough about that. Let's talk about the actual winch here. So the number one thing we need to consider when buying a winch is the capacity of that winch. The M8000 is an 8,000 pound capacity winch, and that's pretty good size for a TJ like we have here. And the general rule of thumb that a lot of people use when sizing a winch is they say you want a winch with a capacity that's at least 1.5 times the curb weight of your vehicle. So the curb weight of a base model TJ like this is like 3,200 pounds or so. And we're going to have a bunch of extra parts on here, so we'll just round it up to 4,000 pounds. So 4,000 times 1.5, we get 6,000 pounds. And I don't know if there are any non-ATV size winches that are rated for 6,000 pounds. So with the 8,000 pound winch, we are well within our needs. So after deciding what size winch we need, what capacity, the second decision we need to make is, do we want steel cable or synthetic rope? Now, we could go into a whole, 20, 30 plus hour-long video on talking about the basics of winches and winching, but just to keep it simple, I'm going to say that the steel cable, the pluses of that are that it's more abrasion resistant, so if we end up running it over rocks or through the dirt, it's not going to deteriorate like the synthetic line will. On the flip side, the synthetic line is lighter, which can make it easier to pull. You're not going to weigh the front of the vehicle down as much. And it's also a little safer when it snaps because it'll kind of drop to the ground, where the steel cable, if it were to snap, can recoil or whip back and take out body parts. So, there's pluses and minuses to both of them. But beyond that, a winch with steel cable is generally going to be a few $100 cheaper than a similarly equipped winch with synthetic line. Now, I clearly went with a steel cable here, and that is primarily for abrasion resistance and durability. So if this was a dedicated trail rig and all that this winch was going to be used for is recovery of myself and other vehicles, then the synthetic line would be great, but I foresee using this winch for other things as well, like yard work, maybe pulling logs around or pulling dead vehicles around the yard or whatever. And the steel cable is just going to have a longer lifespan. So let's get this thing installed. So we are fully installed now, wired up and everything. Basically, I just ran the wires right through the grill here. If this was a nicer grill and a nicer Jeep, I would have been concerned about scratching the paint or these wire loom rubbing up against the paint and damaging it, but this grill is pretty beat as it is, so I'm not too concerned about that. If I had been concerned, I might have run under the grill instead of through the grill, but like I said, I didn't really think much about that. So pretty much the wires come in, they run along the fender right here. I used a few zip ties with the fir tree or the Christmas tree fitting that tucked right into some pre-existing holes in there and ran up to the battery. As a side note, I will eventually upgrade to a proper post-style battery terminal. This is just kind of a makeshift version, so I've got all the ring terminals here for wires coming in, and they're into this, I don't even know what you call this, one of these clamp type battery terminals. It's not being used as a clamp type. So eventually I'll upgrade to one that has a post and like a little wing nut that ties all the accessories in, and I'll probably switch that one over as well. But this is a winch video. And there it sits. I haven't used it other than spooling it in and out a few times, and that seems to work fine. We'll find out for sure on the trail at some point, I'm sure. So yeah, definitely glad I went with the Warn winch on this one. Just the build quality alone and the fit and finish of parts on this is there's night and day difference between the Harbor Freight winch, which was half the price that I installed on my FJ Cruiser. And you know, I've heard nothing but good stuff about Warn winches. I've you know, had good experiences myself, and I expect to have good experiences moving forward with this one. So enough of me blabbering on about a product that I bought and paid full price for. Let's go talk about how much I did pay for it.
Well, today was a pretty expensive day as far as our daily totals have been going so far. Now, our previous total for the build was about $30 shy of $3,000, and today we added the Warn M8000 winch at a cost of $589. Cheapest place I could find to buy it was Northridge 4x4, so that's where that came from. It also happened to be at the time that I bought it, they were running a promotion where you spend X amount of dollars, you get a gift card to use at a later date for so many dollars as a result. So by buying that winch, I did get a $75 gift card that I will use at a later date, and I'm sure that we will see that come up later on in the build here as some parts that will technically be free, I guess. Then beyond that, we had some wire loom. I probably used about 10 feet of wire loom just on any wire that was coming off of the winch control box. I put wiring loom on just to make it all uniform and black and help protect the wire a little bit. Little backstory in the wire loom. A while back, I bought like 300 feet of it for about 10 cents a foot, and I got a super good deal on that. I got some 1/4 inch, got some 3/8, and I think I got some 1/2 inch. So I bought a whole bunch of it, but it was only like $30 for the 300 feet. So that's why that was so cheap. And then we had hardware. There were a couple places that I wanted to put washers that Warn didn't include washers for us in the installation hardware. So, just for my own peace of mind, I wanted to use them. And that had more to do with the winch plate. There were some, there was some room for adjustment in the winch plate where some of the mounting bolts went. And I just felt better about putting a washer underneath the bolt where those slots were, just because they were a little bit wider than they needed to be. And then beyond that, something that you didn't see in this video that I probably should have shown you was a winch cover that I got for the winch. So I don't want to just throw that expensive winch on the front of the Jeep and have it sitting out in the elements. So I went on eBay and picked up one of the cheaper winch covers that I could find on there that was waterproof. And that just sits on top of the winch now, and it's been on there for a couple weeks at this point, and seems pretty decent. Hasn't blown off driving down the road, so that's always good. But anyway, our total for the build at this point comes out to $3,568.59. Now, that was obviously quite a jump today towards our prospective total of $5,000 for this build, which is a number I'd kind of set out in my mind at the beginning of the build as the number that we were going to shoot for building a budget trail Jeep. Now, I'm calling it the budget crawler because I like rocks. Rocks are where I have the most fun. I hate mud, and then, I guess the in-between of that is, of like slightly unmaintained Forest Service roads where you just got some rocks and bumps, and that stuff's just annoying. So that's why I'm calling it the crawler, is because we're gonna go play in the rocks with this thing when it's done. And yeah, we're moving pretty close to that $5,000 budget, but I think that we may be able to kind of curb it and keep it at 5,000, and then we'll run some trails with it, and we'll see how capable it is at that point. And then I think there may be a phase 2 to this build where I'll go a little bit more in depth with building parts. So more than likely, I'm going to build a set of axles, and that will probably be $3,000 or so. I'm thinking I roughed out for building the axles the way that I want. So that's probably going to be the next phase, but I won't get too far into that and ruin the surprise. So anyway, thanks for watching. Always appreciate it. And I'd appreciate a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to see more on this build.